Well, after a few weeks away from it, we're bringing back our rants and raves, and I'll start with you tonight, Dan. What do you got?
I have a rant for the state of freedom of the press around the world. The organization Reporters Without Borders put out a report recently showing that freedom of the press is on the decline in a number of countries because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Their lead example was Hungary, where they passed a new law that journalists can go to prison for 5 years if they put out what the government considers to be misinformation about the pandemic. And you really have to wonder, is this going to come home to roost in the United States as well? Because this is really an unprecedented crisis, and you can imagine there are certain officials who would love to stifle criticism during this time.
Wow. All right. John, what do you got?
Well, look, you know, the old rap on broadcast news in particular and the media in general, if it bleeds, it leads. All they care about is ratings and circulation and so forth. And there's some truth there. But I want to do a rave for the aggressive way in which news organizations have brought you good news stories during this. Take a look at an episode that we carried live on the WBZ News. I'm sure our competitors did as well if they had cameras there, showing a Boston police officer being released from Mass General after recovering from a bout with COVID-19.
A really emotional scene is playing out. A police officer from Boston who has recovered from the coronavirus was released just moments ago. I want to let you just listen in here for a second. As you can see, he's meeting for the first time in probably weeks. We are told he nearly died, and now we have his loved one's arms around him.
Wow, yeah, that was great. I saw that.
My colleagues, David Wade and Lisa Hughes. But look, not a lot of social distancing going on there, but what an emotional,
yeah, it was great.
Feel-good moment. And we've had needed this kind of coverage, and the media's been giving it to us. Good job, I say.
Joanna.
Well, speaking of broadcast news getting very real right now, I have a rave for Will Reeve. He's a correspondent for ABC, and he this week went on Good Morning America, broadcast a report about COVID-19 out of his house. Camera pulled back just enough to see what he was actually wearing, and he wasn't wearing pants. I think he represents many of us who are spending a lot of time on online Zoom meetings and wondering what the proper attire should be. That went viral. He was incredibly good-natured about it. It gave everybody, I think, again, another little feel-good boost that they needed this week. And I am supportive of creative bottoms on television.
Got it. All right. Adam.
First, if you guys could keep the camera above my waist for this, that would be excellent. My rave is anticipatory. It's for a podcast that's coming out on May 11th, hosted by Patrick Radden Keefe, the New Yorker investigative reporter, who's just excellent. He also wrote that book, Say Nothing, about the troubles in Northern Ireland. This is a podcast about the hair metal band The Scorpions, which some of our listeners and viewers will remember, how their hit Winds of Change was allegedly written by the CIA to help take down the Soviet Union. That's the micro focus, but it's, I think, going to be very heavy on 80s Cold War spycraft, hair metal, the CIA's attempts over the decades to use cultural influence to shake things up in the communist bloc. All 11 episodes, or 8 episodes, are going to be available on the 11th, and my guess is I will listen to them all on that day.
It sounds like it's going to be heavily produced like you like, Adam. So
that's what I want.
All right, so finally tonight, I have a rave for the New York Times, specifically David McGraw, who's their lead attorney there. You all may remember a couple of weeks ago, Sean Hannity threatened to sue the New York Times. His lawyer sent a 12-page letter to the New York Times listing all these grievances that Sean Hannity had, that these columnists had been unfair to him, and he wanted a retraction and an apology. Well, in short, David McGraw said, in response to your request for an apology and retraction, our answer is no. I just love that. It's just so straightforward and specific. That's all they're going to get for it. And meanwhile, Sean Hannity hasn't said a word about whether he's going to pursue the lawsuit. But basically, David McGraw said this was fair opinion. The columnists were giving their opinions, and their opinion was that Sean Hannity had downplayed the seriousness of the coronavirus, and Sean was denying that. Anyway, thank you all for being tonight. That was great to have everybody back together.